Welcome to the Improve and Have Fun podcast. My name is Paul PvP Perez, and on this podcast, I document my life while improving myself and having fun along the way with the hopes of encouraging you to do the same. And on this episode, I'm going to be talking about my movie and TV recommendations for the winter months. Let's go ahead and get into it. During the fall and winter, I tend to stay in more often. When this happens, I enjoy catching up on TV. But what to watch? I'm here to help. These are TV shows that I've watched in the final months of 2018 and into the beginning of 2019, and these are recommended. There might be spoilers in spots. The first TV show that I recommend is American Horror Story, particularly seasons 2, 3, and 5. After watching and enjoying Haunting of Hill House on Netflix, I wanted to continue watching some great horror TV. I've heard rumblings about how good American Horror Story is from coworkers over the last few years. I even talked about it with my therapist as he's a fan of the show. I binged watched seasons 1 through 5. I began season 6, which was called Roanoke, but it did not hook me and I dropped it about 3 episodes in. My favorite seasons were Asylum, which is season 2, Coven, season 3, and Hotel, which is season 5. They weren't perfect, but so much fun. They were wonderful homages to classic horror movies in the season called Coven, the second season. I'm sorry, that's the third season. Sorry about that. Such as there were homages to The Evil Dead. There was an homage to Night of the Living Dead as well. Season 5 Hotel was visually eye-catching and had some of the craziest characters, such as James Patrick March and the Countess. And Asylum Season 2 feels like an engaging novella you'd read on a long road trip. And that one is actually my favorite of the 3, Season 2 Asylum. It was fantastic. It really was. Now, the next television series I wanted to recommend was Daredevil Season 3. And all hail, in my opinion, the best Netflix Marvel show. This is the series I currently recommend to coworkers and friends if they are deciding on checking out the multitude of superhero long-form content on Netflix. In Season 3, worthwhile adversaries such as Bullseye and Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, give Matt Murdock a run for his money. When we were kids, my younger brother owned a beat-up Secret Wars Mattel Daredevil figure. I think he got it from a friend. Little did I know that this Marvel character would have such a rich history of awesome, gritty, noir storylines. After watching this season, I wanted more. Possibly a great comic book story to read from this character, I thought. I found on Comixology Man Without Fear by Frank Miller and John Romita Jr., and this was a fantastic book, and I will discuss this graphic novel in a future podcast episode. If you watch only one episode of this season, this Daredevil Season 3, see episode 4 titled Blindsided. Witness an incredible prison fight scene which just goes on and on. Fantastic stuff, truly. Now, the next TV shows that I recommend, and notice I said TV shows, plural, and I bunched these all up in one, and it's Hell's Kitchen, The Amazing Race, and Survivor. Now, Amazon Prime recently added multiple seasons of these 3 shows. These were some of my favorite reality TV. Revisiting them took me back to a time when I lived at home with my mom. These shows would be appointment television watching, hands down. I moved away from home actually on bad terms, and when I rented my first room on lonely nights, these shows brought a small warmth of being back home under my mother's wing. They eased some of the homesickness when it would come up. Most of January 2019 has been spent watching these TV shows, these particular 3. I love watching Hell's Kitchen while preparing and having dinner, seeing the chefs and the cooking, the challenges, and Chef Ramsay tearing into the competitors. At home, out loud, I've often imitated the voiceover guy because I find him ridiculously entertaining. For Chef Ramsay, that's the guy. That's the guy's voice. The Amazing Race used to be my absolute favorite reality show. The variety, the world travel, the teams and their stories. Phil Keoghan is a very likable host. And I love his quote, the last team to check in may be eliminated. And just on a side note, I remember like a year or two ago, Tim Ferriss actually interviewed him on his podcast. So I'm going to link to that podcast in the notes for this particular video or this particular podcast. So you can check it out for yourself. He's a remarkable guy. Now, I enjoyed but had a disdain for Survivor. The show was fun, but the lying, the cheating, the stealing between the competitors was slimy, and it didn't feel good after watching. With 2019 eyes, it's my favorite show of the three. And why? I find the storytelling is best on Survivor, and I'm currently studying storytelling to improve my own podcast, to improve my blogs and my videos. This is a program which quickly gets me invested in rooting for the competitors or in tears when the finalists meet their loved ones. Watching these shows on Amazon Prime, I can skip ahead and not always spend the whole time watching the whole episode. This is great for revisiting seasons I've already watched in the past. Now we're down to the final two TV shows that I do recommend during these winter months. And like I said, if you want to binge these, there's more to watch. There's plenty to watch. But these are, like I said, ones that I've watched that I really, really enjoyed. And I hope that you either have watched them or do watch them and tell me what you think. Narcos Season 4. I truly enjoyed the first 3 seasons of the series. This particular season, started off slowly but ended in suspense. It portrays Diego Luna as a villain who at first I empathized with. But throughout the course of the show, you see his evil ways rear their ugly head. Michael Peña's character, who tragically never quits in his search to arrest Diego Luna, is inspiring but sad. Other standouts are Tenoch Huerta as the unhinged Caro and his girlfriend Sofia Contessa, played by Tessa Law, Matt Lesher, who fans of the Flash TV show, The Reverse Flash, as DEA agent Jamie Kuykendall, and Joaquin Cosio as Don Neto were great as well. Narcos often has a very strong cast. I love how it connected to previous seasons with appearances by the Cali Cartel and Pablo Escobar. A little bit of a spoiler there, sorry. A young Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is introduced and becomes a recurring character. Season 4 is not the strongest of the show, but it is quality. And like I mentioned El Chapo, I hope that Narcos in the future, maybe if not the next season, the season after that, does do a whole season on him. That would be fascinating. And the last show I recommend is The Last Kingdom on Netflix. You can find all these shows, as a matter of fact, on Netflix or Amazon Prime, either one. I didn't mention that to begin with. But I watched the first 2 seasons of The Last Kingdom before Netflix acquired it, online through my cable provider, Nefarious Means, and I'll let you figure out what that means. I'm a fan of the History Channel's Vikings TV show. And when I came across this program, The Last Kingdom, a few years ago, I thought that it looked like the aforementioned Viking show. It even has a character of the same name, which is Ragnar Lothbrok. What I like about this show over Vikings is the pace. It moves much quicker. Also, we, the viewer, are right alongside a core group of characters, barring a few new players introduced here and there, and watch them develop through all 3 seasons. Alexander Draymond is a very charismatic lead, and the supporting cast of King Alfred, his family, Father Biaka, Breda, Aylesworth, Ethelwald, to name a few, fill out this show well. One of my favorite things is just listening to these names over and over again, especially Biaka, Father Biaka. Great villains, great action, and you won't go wrong with this series, with any of the seasons of this particular series. I recommend the whole thing. Now, I'm not going to go as in depth for my movie recommendations, but movies that I had seen definitely in the last 2 months of 2018 are a lot of them are coming to DVD or to video now, or to streaming, and some of these movies really, before I go into them, really had an effect on me. I either really enjoyed them, they got me super emotional in the theater, and I was like crying. But these were just fantastic films, and I don't think you'll go wrong with any of these recommendations. If you haven't seen any of them, maybe you've seen all of them, but my movie recommendations is, of course, A Star is Born with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. That movie sometimes with Lady Gaga singing, who I am not the biggest fan of, but she definitely won me over with this performance in this movie. Like when she's singing some of those songs, it gave me chills. I was like, wow, you know. Bohemian Rhapsody was just like a fun thrill ride. It's so much fun. It's fantastic. It really is. Ralph Wrecks the Internet, another movie that thoroughly enjoyed, and that got me actually emotional at one point. Bumblebee, I'm just a big fan of the Transformers, and this is the Transformers done right. It was so much fun. Aquaman was just a thrill ride. To tell you that the night that I went to go see it, people were clapping in the movies. I was looking at the people that I went to go see. I was like, wow, clapping. People are actually clapping with this movie. But Aquaman was another big adventure movie. Like if you like movies like The Mummy, like with Brendan Fraser, something along those lines, this is kind of in that same vein. Aquaman is, and I mean, maybe everybody's seen Aquaman by now. It's like over $1 billion, though, but it's the most money-making movie of the DC Universe movies to date. When I'm recording this, Creed 2 was solid. Just super, like a solid sports movie almost, you know. It was just pure solid. And the final movie was Overlord, which had gotten a lot of great reviews online. Nobody saw it in the theaters, but produced by J.J. Abrams through the Bad Robot company, and this was something else. Like once it comes to streaming, please do check out Overlord. It's like horror, Nazis, it's good stuff, really. And the final quick recommendation, even though this is like these games, I'm going to recommend some games too. And these are games that I played. I had an Xbox for a period of time, but then I ended up getting rid of it just to have more time to work on the podcast and videos and stuff like that. But I may revisit getting an Xbox again in the nearby future. But 3 games that I played, and 2 that I finished, and 1 that I didn't. I was very close to finishing it before I got rid of the Xbox. And these are older games. These are not new. But Batman Arkham City, if you've never played it, I do recommend it. I finished that game. The ending was a little disappointing, but as a whole, as an adventure, it was really fantastic. It could get a little repetitive when you're, fighting the street thugs, which at first is fantastic, but when you do it a bunch of times, it's like this is kind of like the same thing over and over again. Splinter Cell Conviction was another game. There was an Xbox Gold game. I downloaded it and I finished that. So much fun, that game. It never has like a boss battle, but it just has obstacles and you just keep going and going. And Sam Fisher is a boss. You don't cross Sam Fisher. And the final game that I played for a period of time before, and I'm sure I was close to finishing it, was Sunset Overdrive. And how fantastic was that game? I played that game because I love listening to the Gamertag Radio podcast, and the lead host, which is Danny Pena, he always talks about how great this game is. And I was like, let me check this game out. And I did, and it really was fantastic. The same developers who've made that game are the ones, this is like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the same developers who've made Sunset Overdrive are the guys who made the Spider-Man game, the new one for the PS4, and everybody's raving about that game. To tell you that it was on some people's year-end and best of for 2018. So that same team did Sunset Overdrive, and Sunset Overdrive was fantastic. But those are all my winter recommendations. Like I said, if you have seen some of these, please comment below. If you played any of these games, please comment below. Tell me what you think. If you haven't, then please do see some of these shows, some of these movies. Like I said, you won't go wrong with them. And if you think I'm completely wrong in any of these recommendations, please, as well, comment down below. My name is Paul PvP Perez. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Boom.